Friday, we talk Jenks football. With us is the head football coach, Adam Gaylor. First of all, your brother, Guy, spent some time with my wife over the weekend at homecoming. They were classmates at TU.
That's awesome. Yeah. He he's an old Golden Hurricane back under Coach Rader and TJ Rubley and Dan Bitson and Chris Penn and yeah, his roommate Phil Holmes, who was a starting nose guard back there in the late 80s, early 90s, was he
Yeah,
came to our game last Friday, so it was good to see him.
yeah. Phil did emailed me and was on the way in because he wanted to see Christine. They were friends. I knew Phil's dad really well, who once went into the stands at Wake Forest and dragged some people out. He was a big
Yeah.
dude.
Yes, he was gigantic. Great man. He was a great
Yeah,
man.
he certainly was. Let's get to your football game. It was a really good one, 22-14 at the quarter, but you turned it on in the second quarter and scored 38 points. What changed?
It was a couple defensively. It was a technique deal. They hit a big play with their best receiver. It was really fast, and we didn't play the correct technique. And then the other one, our best guy, Caleb Dillard, missed a tackle. And then the guy breaks a long one. They end up getting it inside the red zone, scoring. And then after that, we kind of settled down. We had a stop on the first series and a takeaway on the second series. And I don't know if we took our foot off the gas. Kind of let up a little bit, but just kind of settled down there in the second half, and offensively we didn't punt. So it was, defensively it was just like, hey, let's get some stops put together, and we're having success on offense.
It was still an 8 point lead at the end of the first quarter, but just that 38 point explosion was big. A couple of notes in this one. First of all, you got some linemen into the end zone. God bless you. I mean, you got McAnally in the end zone and another dude. Tell me about those plays.
Yeah, we had the one formation that we throw the Tebow jump pass to Luke McAnally, and was that formation that KD had 55 yards rushing a couple weeks ago against Mustang. So hadn't done much out of it other than run KD. So we got to have some change ups out of it, and so we put the pop pass, the Tebow pass in there to Luke, and he slipped by the DBs, and on offense with Riley, he's a super athlete. I mean, he's a really. I mean, Luke's a good athlete, but Riley for an offensive lineman is an unbelievable athlete. So, we see how athletic he is. Sometimes, the common fan doesn't see it just because he is an offensive lineman, but he's super athletic and yeah, high stepped there the last couple of yards going into the end zone, and super excited to get everybody involved. And it's also it's fun for the kids, where you're always, evolving and being creative. And Coach Cronister certainly is that.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Anytime you get big guys on the end zone, I mean, that's just always so much fun. Plus, quite honestly, Coach, you put stuff on film for other people to consider, don't you?
Oh, certainly. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a defensive guy, so I certainly promote all that to Coach Cronister. And as a defensive guy, you want to, if you put a flagpole out there on the numbers, we're going to go out there and cover just because that's, we're defensive guys. He's eligible, so we got to make sure we cover the flagpole. So you get guys, chasing ghosts, so to speak, and we're going to continue to do that, and evolve some of those packages, and again try to have fun and get a bunch of guys involved.
Speaking of fun, KD is now your all-time touchdowns leader. It's really almost impossible to say what a guy like him and that family has meant to Jenks, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. His dad's one of the greatest to ever play here, and obviously had some great years there in Norman at Oklahoma. And KD's just phenomenal. He's really grown as a leader. I think it's probably the biggest area of growth. Everybody knows how good of an athlete he is and how good of a football player he is. But just as a leader, holding himself and his teammates accountable, he's done a great job in the offseason. That's continued on into the season, and he's just a good kid. He's typical ornery little teenager, but he's an outstanding young man. My daughter and him are good friends, and so got a great relationship with Katie. So super proud of all the accomplishments he's been able to attain.
I would imagine he's going to be fun to watch in college as well. We talk about improving as the season's gone along, and you and I have mentioned this before, but I have seen such improvement, and I only see the film of your team other than, of course, when we've crossed and played, but I just seen what I've seen is more basics. I mean, not that you weren't good at it. I don't see you guys missing things. I don't see a lot of missed blocks. I don't think I see a lot of missed assignments. I'm seeing a really solid football team that plays really well, but at the same time, sometimes isn't spectacular, yet you realize you're getting 38 points. It's just, I don't know, there's something about the good good standard solid football you're playing. What do you think?
Yeah, it's kind of the Jenks way. Early in the year, you kind of learn, figure out who we are, and then the kids just keep getting better and better. And I know that's defensively, that's kind of been our story, kind of early on. Knew we were going to be young and inexperienced in some spots defensively, but the kids have done a great job. Have done a great job in practice. We talked about the importance of being a great practice team. That championship teams are great practice teams, and so we've continued to harp on that, and the kids have taken to it, and they've continued to improve. A lot more physical, tackling much better, and then offensively, you knew from a talent standpoint, we had we had KD and Caleb, and offensive line is really good, but like you said, our being assignment sound, making layups. It's kind of what Coach Cronister, he's an old basketball guy, so he uses some basketball analogies, but just making layups, right? Making sure we ID the front properly and we block the right guys, and Landon is checking the protections the right way. And so, just doing the things that, don't get beat before the ball snap, so to speak, but also, being physical, finishing blocks. Landon's been unbelievable from an accuracy standpoint. He's 70 something percent on the season. And I think he's got 21, 22 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. So, not giving the ball away, on the offensive side, but we want to be great at the fundamentals. We want to be the state champions at doing the little things right. And that's kind of been, it's kind of been the model that's set here for the last 30 years.
It's interesting to see it get better during the season. I mean, it gets better always because people get reps, but the way it's gotten better with you guys, I thought has been better. You mentioned Landon. I think he was what, 16 of 18 for three bills plus. That's
Yeah.
that's not bad.
No, it's not at all. He does a great job. He's so unassuming. He's you can't tell if we're down or if we're up 50. He's just kind of the same way. And again, I think I've mentioned this before. I'm more the Baker Mayfield type, where your motions on wear your motions on your sleeve, and he's just kind of even keel, which is a great quality to have as a quarterback. Something bad happens, you just come back, and it doesn't really phase you. And so he's done a great job, and our offense is so quarterback driven in how that not just throwing the football, but making the reads on RPOs, understanding pass protections, where to set them based on the defensive looks, defensive fronts. If they're showing pressure on one side, being able to recall the protection the other way. So
Right.
he's been an absolute stud.
Before we move on to Enid, we'll get there in a second. As well as your team is playing, I'm sure there's something you'd like them to do a little better. What are you going to chew on in the next couple of weeks preparing for the playoffs?
Just continue being consistent, doing again, like Coach Cronister said, making layups. That's being consistent with our alignments on defense, with our eyes, no bad eye violations. Continue to play hard, because that's one thing. We've not been perfect on defense, but the kids are playing extremely hard, and they're playing really physical. So just being consistent in that area. And on offense, don't be satisfied. I think we're averaging 47 a game, things like that. Well, let's not be satisfied where we're at, because we scored 67 last week, and you look at it and it's like, man, probably could add more, or in fewer plays, if we do a couple of things different. So just understanding, it's we're playing to a standard. It's Jenks versus Jenks. It's not necessarily the opponent in front of us. We're the only people that can beat us. So we just need to understand that the consistency on both sides, and not being satisfied with where we're at on offense.
And this is going to have to be the case tonight because it's a long trip to Enid. They're a winless team. And even though your team knows that because they read like anybody else, you've got to get them to play, like you said, against Jenks. What is your philosophy going into this long trip tonight?
Again, what's the standard? What are we ultimately playing for? It's not just this week or even next week, but it's, where do we want to be, the first weekend in December? And they're well coached. They've got good schemes on both sides. Brad Cornelson's their head coach. He was the offense coordinator at Virginia Tech and at Memphis, and so he's an unbelievable football coach. So they're going to have some things that we hadn't prepared for, and it's understanding we've got to be able to adjust to those, but also understanding what's the standard? Can we motivate ourselves
Yes.
to play at a championship level on a week like this? And they struggled, and again, our kids see that, and we've talked to them about it, and they see, we watch film with them, and they see kind of the struggles, but you go back a couple weeks ago, they're up 14-0 on Norman in the first quarter, and Norman has to come back. And so just making sure we get off the bus ready to play and ready to go take care of business and do what we're supposed to do, and not have turnovers, not have misalignments on defense, but go out there and play a really solid football game.
Yeah, be a business-like team. It's a long trip. I mean, it's probably not as long as I sometimes feel like it is, but when you get past Stillwater, it feels like you're driving all the way to California, doesn't it?
Yes, yes, it does. It feels kind of like you're out there in western Kansas as you get going. It is a long trip, and we'll go straight out there, get them off the bus, and stretch and move around a little bit before we have our team meal and get into meetings. But definitely from a mindset standpoint, it's certainly a challenge.
Well, good luck out there. We'll talk about it next week. And nice hoodie, by the way.
Thank you.